You know, sometimes when we're walking with God, we expect Him to make everything crystal clear. We expect the map, the timeline, the confirmation, and the guarantee. But what if I told you that the very thing you're calling confusion is actually clarity in disguise? What if the fog you're trying to pray away is the very cloud God is using to cover you until the time is right? See, we've been taught to equate clarity with comfort, that if God is in it, everything will make sense. But sometimes when God is truly guiding you, it doesn't make sense at all. You can't explain it, you can't trace it. You can't plan it. You just know something inside of you won't let you go back to who you used to be, even if you don't yet know where you're going. There comes a moment in your journey when God won't give you details. He'll only give you direction. And that direction may not come with a full explanation. It may not even come with assurance from people. It'll come as a gentle nudge in your spirit that says, go here, trust me, move now. And that's where faith becomes real, when you no longer need the whole picture to take the next step. Some of us have been so used to depending on certainty that we've forgotten how to depend on God. We've been chasing signs and symbols when God is saying, I'm not trying to show you something, I'm trying to grow you into something. You're asking for clarity, but He's building character. You're asking for direction, but He's developing discernment. So when everything around you feels confusing, when doors you prayed for suddenly close, when people you counted on walk away, when opportunities you thought were meant for you fall apart, pause before you panic. Maybe it's not confusion, maybe it's construction. God might be tearing down the version of your plan that can't handle the weight of His promise. Sometimes clarity looks like chaos before it looks like peace, because God doesn't always show up as explanation. Sometimes He shows up as interruption. You thought the breakup was confusion, but it was clarity. You thought losing that job was confusion, but it was clarity. You thought that detour was the enemy, but it was the divine moving you away from danger you couldn't see. When confusion hits, the human part of you wants to take control. You start replaying every scenario in your head, trying to make sense of it, trying to rewrite the ending, trying to understand what went wrong. But faith is not about understanding everything. It's about trusting that even when you can't understand, God still can. It's hard, isn't it, to walk when you can't see the next step, to smile when you don't know how it'll work out, to stay calm when nothing around you feels stable. But that's what happens when you let God guide. He trains you to trust His voice more than your vision. You may not see the path clearly, but if you can still hear His whisper, you're not lost, you're led. I know what it feels like to be standing in a moment that doesn't make sense. You thought you heard God clearly, but now everything's shifting. The timing's off, the pieces aren't fitting, and the silence is loud. You start wondering if you missed something, if you took a wrong turn, if maybe God changed His mind about you. But hear me, confusion is not the absence of God's presence. It's often the space where He's teaching you to rely on His presence alone. When God is guiding, He doesn't always speak in complete sentences. Sometimes He speaks in fragments. A thought here, a conviction there, a door that shuts, a door that opens, a peace that settles. And your job isn't to make sense of every piece. It's to keep walking until the pieces start forming a picture. There's a story forming in your life that doesn't look finished yet. You might be standing in a chapter that feels uncertain, but it's not the end, it's the middle. And in the middle, things rarely make sense. In the middle, faith feels fragile. In the middle, you question everything you once knew. But that's where God is closest, not at the start when it's easy to believe, not at the finish when it's obvious, but right there in the middle when all you have left is trust. You see, confusion to you might look like chaos, but to God it's choreography. Every twist, every turn, every unexpected pause, it's all part of His plan to align you with purpose. You don't need to understand it to obey it. You just need to move when He says move. If God had given you every detail, you would have depended on the plan instead of the planner. You would have trusted the route instead of the relationship. So He hides just enough for you to seek Him, because the goal isn't just to get to the destination. It's to learn his voice along the way. Some of you are praying, God, show me the way, but he's saying, I am the way. You don't have to see where you're going when you know who's guiding. You don't have to fear what's next when you know who's already there. And maybe that's the real clarity he's trying to bring, not clarity about your situation, but clarity about your source. Because when you stop needing all the answers, you start discovering that God is enough. You start realizing that the same God who led you here is faithful to lead you through. So if you're in that season right now where nothing makes sense, where prayers feel unanswered and directions feel unclear, I want you to breathe. You are not lost, you are not forgotten, you are not off track, you are being guided not by sight but by spirit. The next time confusion comes, instead of asking, God, where are you? Ask God, what are you showing me through this? Because sometimes his silence is saying, stay still. Sometimes his delay is saying, not yet. And sometimes his detour is saying, there's something better waiting for you. You don't have to have it all figured out to be faithful. You just have to keep showing up, confused, scared, uncertain, but still willing to trust. Because even when you can't trace his hand, you can still trust his heart. And that's the power of divine guidance, knowing that when confusion comes, it doesn't mean God has left you. It just means he's leading you differently. Because sometimes the clearest sign that God is guiding you is when nothing makes sense, but peace still whispers, keep going. You ever been in a storm so loud that peace almost feels like denial? When everything around you is shaking, when life feels like it's falling apart, and yet somehow, you still feel a calm in your spirit that you can't explain. That's not you trying to be strong. That's not you pretending everything's fine. That's God guiding you. That's heaven whispering, I'm still here. See, peace isn't the absence of chaos. Peace is the presence of God right in the middle of it. There are seasons where everything external is breaking down, relationships ending, finances tight, opportunities drying up. And yet inside, there's this unshakable knowing that somehow, someway, you're still held. You can't put words to it. You can't justify it. You just know there's a stillness that refuses to move, even while the storm is raging. That's not coincidence. That's divine confirmation. God doesn't always guide you with signs and open doors. Sometimes he guides you with peace that doesn't make sense. That's how you know he's involved, because your peace shows up before your answer does. When you can rest without results, when you can praise without proof, when you can sleep through what used to keep you up at night, that's when God's hand is heavy on your life. Some of you are in that space right now. You don't have all the answers. The situation looks impossible. People are waiting for you to break down, but you're surprising even yourself. You're still standing. You're still smiling. You're still showing up. That's not strength. That's surrender. That's God giving you peace that passes understanding. Because when you let him lead, you stop needing everything to make sense. We keep asking God to change our circumstances, but sometimes he changes us first. He doesn't calm the storm. He calms his child. And the more you mature in your faith, the more you'll realize that peace is not something you chase. It's something you choose. You don't wait for peace to come. You decide to rest in it even when the world is spinning. Because peace isn't about what's happening around you. It's about what's happening within you. You know what's powerful when the same storm that used to break you doesn't even move you anymore. When you've cried over something before, but now you can look at it and just say, God's got it. That's growth. That's guidance. That's God teaching you how to carry peace as a weapon, not just a feeling, because peace protects you. Peace keeps you from reacting out of fear, from making decisions out of panic, from speaking when silence would serve you better. There's a difference between worldly calm and divine peace. Worldly calm depends on control. Everything has to go right. Everyone has to act right. Every detail has to line up. But divine peace, it doesn't care about control. It thrives in chaos. It's the kind of peace that says, even if I lose it all, I still have God, and if I have God, I still have everything. When you really trust God, you stop chasing explanations and start embracing assurance. You stop saying, "Why God?" and start saying, "I still believe God." Because peace isn't passive. Peace is power. Peace is the loudest declaration of faith in the middle of uncertainty. When the enemy expects you to panic, but you worship instead, that's peace doing its work. When life expects you to fold, but you stand still and trust, that's peace protecting your promise. Some of you think you're not moving forward because everything looks quiet, but don't mistake stillness for stagnation. God works best in silence, and peace is often the proof that He's working things out in the background. When your heart stops racing, when your thoughts stop spinning, when you stop needing to fix what only God can finish, that's not laziness, that's alignment. That's you learning to let God lead instead of trying to lead God. The enemy doesn't mind you being busy, but he fears you being still. Because when you're still, you can hear God, and when you can hear God, you can't be easily distracted. That's why peace is so powerful. It silences confusion. It separates your feelings from your faith. It reminds you that even if life doesn't make sense, your trust doesn't have to waver. Peace doesn't always feel like joy. Sometimes peace feels like quiet resolve. Sometimes peace feels like choosing not to argue, choosing not to explain, choosing not to go back and forth. Sometimes peace means walking away from what drains you, even if you still love it, because peace is sacred. You can't have peace and still entertain chaos. You can't pray for peace while feeding stress. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is say, "No more." There will be times when your peace will offend people who benefited from your chaos. They'll say you've changed, and they'll be right. You have. You've grown into a version of yourself that no longer needs to control everything. You've learned that when God is guiding, your job isn't to fix it, it's to follow. And following requires peace. You might be walking through something right now that's testing every ounce of faith you have. You want to worry, you want to react, you want to take it into your own hands, but before you do, take a breath. Ask yourself, what if God already has this handled? Because He does, He always does. That's what peace knows, even when the mind doesn't understand. Peace is not something you earn by being perfect. It's something you receive by trusting that God's plan is greater than your pressure. So even when you can't see the outcome, you can rest in His oversight. You can lay your head down knowing that He never sleeps, He never forgets, and He never fails. The next time you feel that supernatural calm that makes no sense, don't question it. Thank Him for it. That peace means He's already gone ahead of you. That peace means the battle is already won. That peace means He's teaching you that guidance doesn't always look like movement, sometimes it looks like rest. Peace is the proof that you're walking with Him. It's not about everything being perfect, it's about you being protected. So even when the world around you shakes, even when uncertainty tries to whisper doubt, stand in that peace. Hold it like armor, guard it like treasure. Let it lead you like a compass that always points to Him. Because when you let peace lead, you'll find yourself walking into blessings you didn't chase, walking through doors you didn't force, walking into favor you didn't even see coming. That's how God guides His children through peace that makes no sense but keeps you steady. And that kind of peace, that's the sound of heaven saying, "You're right where I need you to be." You ever notice how sometimes the doors you prayed for, the ones you fasted for, the ones you believed were yours, suddenly close right in your face? And you're left standing there, confused, hurt, maybe even angry with God, wondering, why would you let me get that close just to shut it down? We don't talk enough about that kind of heartbreak, the heartbreak of closed doors. Because when you've given your all, when you've been faithful, when you've done everything right, and God still says no, it shakes you. But what if I told you that those closed doors are not rejection, they're protection? What if every door that slammed in your face was really heaven's way of saving you from a room that could have destroyed you? You see, when God is guiding you, He's not just concerned with what looks good to you. He's focused on what's good for you. And sometimes what you thought was an opportunity was actually an obstacle in disguise. There's a version of you that only disappointment can reveal. Because it's in the no that you discover how strong your yes to God really is. It's easy to trust him when things are opening, when people are clapping, when favor feels like flow. But what about when he says no? What about when the promotion goes to someone else, when the relationship you thought was forever ends, when the dream feels delayed indefinitely? Can you still believe that his hand is on it even when it hurts? When you let God lead, you have to understand that his guidance doesn't always look like green lights. Sometimes it looks like red ones, and it takes faith to thank him for both. Because a closed door doesn't mean you're not called. It just means that particular path can't carry your purpose. God knows the rooms that will drain you. He knows the opportunities that would dilute your anointing. He knows the timing that would tempt you to depend on yourself instead of him. We like to say, when one door closes, another one opens. But the truth is, sometimes that door stays closed for a long time. Sometimes you stand in that hallway for months, even years, with no new door in sight. That's where faith gets tested, not in the promise, but in the pause. Because when you're in the hallway, it's quiet. You can't see what's next. You start questioning what's wrong with you. You start wondering if you missed your moment. But that hallway is holy ground. That's where God refines you, redefines you, and repositions you for what's truly meant to be yours. The hallway is where you learn that closed doors don't define your worth. Just because someone didn't choose you doesn't mean God didn't. Just because something ended doesn't mean God's plan did. Closed doors hurt, but they also heal. Because when one shuts, it forces you to stop depending on your own power and start trusting his purpose. Sometimes the rejection is what redirects you to revelation. You thought that job was your provision, but God wanted to show you he was your provider. You thought that person was your forever, but God wanted to remind you he's your foundation. You thought that opportunity was your breakthrough, but he was saving you for something bigger, something you couldn't see because your perspective was still small. It's human to get frustrated when God's no interrupts your plans, but one day you'll look back and thank him for every door that didn't open. You'll thank him for the people who walked away, for the deals that fell through, for the seasons that ended too soon. Because if that door had opened, you might have settled for less than what he destined for you. Sometimes the reason a door closes is because your purpose has outgrown that place. What used to fit you no longer fulfills you. What used to sustain you no longer serves you. God will let things become uncomfortable so you don't get stuck. He'll stir up frustration in spaces that used to feel safe because he's calling you higher. And when you refuse to move, he'll close the door himself. Closed doors are God's way of keeping you on his timeline because, let's be honest, we'd rather have quick than correct. We'd rather have now than necessary, but God's not rushing to meet your schedule. He's preparing you to meet your destiny. That means some doors will stay closed until you're mature enough to walk through them without losing yourself. And it's not always the enemy closing doors. Sometimes it's grace. Grace that says, you're not ready for this yet. Grace that says, I've got something better. Grace that says, if I open this now, it'll crush you instead of crown you. When you understand that kind of grace, you stop forcing open what God has shut. You start trusting that his no is still love. You ever look back at something you used to want so badly and thank God he didn't give it to you? That's the wisdom that comes from walking with him long enough to see the full picture, because every door that didn't open taught you something. It taught you patience. It taught you perspective. It taught you how to hear his voice above your own desires. Closed doors also reveal what's really guiding you. Are you following God for who he is or for what he gives? Because when doors close and blessings feel delayed, your motives get exposed. True faith says, even if he doesn't open it, I'll still trust him. True faith says, even if it doesn't go how I planned, I know it's still working for my good. There's a peace that comes when you stop chasing what left and start trusting what's next. When you realize that every door that shut wasn't rejection, it was redirection, because God's no doesn't mean never. It just means not this, not now, not that way. He's rerouting you to something that fits your calling, not just your comfort. So if you're in a season right now where everything seems to be closing in, where opportunities are drying up, where people you thought would stay are suddenly gone. Don't let that make you doubt your destiny. Closed doors don't mean God's not guiding you. They mean He's guiding you more carefully. He's being intentional with your placement, strategic with your exposure, deliberate with your development. And maybe that door didn't open because God knew the weight behind it. Maybe He saw the pressure, the distraction, the compromise. Maybe He knew that if you walked through it too soon, you'd lose yourself trying to keep what He never meant for you to carry. That's why we can't just pray for open doors. We have to also thank Him for closed ones. Every no from man is still subject to a greater yes from heaven. Every delay is still under divine timing. Every disappointment is still under divine direction. So don't mourn what closed so long that you miss what's coming next. God's not done. The door that's truly yours will open effortlessly, and when it does, you won't have to beg to be let in. It'll recognize you because it was built for you. Because sometimes the doors that close on you are really the doors that carry you closer to destiny. Growth never feels good while it's happening. We like to talk about purpose, elevation, destiny, but we don't talk enough about the breaking that comes before it. Because when God is truly guiding you, He's not just leading you to blessings. He's leading you through transformation. And transformation doesn't feel like a promotion, it feels like pressure. It feels like everything in your life is shifting, stretching, and shaking all at once. It feels like the version of you that used to fit everywhere suddenly fits nowhere. That's how you know God is doing something new. We pray for growth, but we don't realize what we're asking for. Growth means something has to change. It means comfort has to end. It means familiar has to fall away. And when God starts pruning your life, removing people, stripping distractions, closing doors, you start questioning Him, not realizing that the pruning is the promise in disguise. He's not taking things from you to hurt you. He's removing what can't go with you to the next level. When God is guiding, He doesn't just bless your path, He builds your character. He'll let you walk through seasons that stretch your patience, test your obedience, and challenge your faith. Not because He's punishing you, but because He's preparing you. There's a version of your purpose that only pain can unlock. There's a strength that only surrender can teach. And sometimes the only way to find out what's inside of you is to walk through something that forces it out. I know it hurts. I know you didn't expect to lose them. I know you didn't expect that door to close, that plan to fail, that dream to feel delayed. But hear me, you're not being buried, you're being planted. There's a difference. When something's buried, it's over. But when something's planted, it's about to grow. You may feel the dirt, the darkness, the pressure, but all of that is necessary for what's being birthed in you. God is not punishing you. He's producing something through you, and that's why it hurts so much, because growth always requires breaking. Breaking of pride, breaking of old patterns, breaking of relationships that no longer reflect who you're becoming. The breaking doesn't mean you're broken, it means you're breaking through. You're breaking out of who you were so you can step into who you were meant to be. Sometimes God will let everything around you fall apart just to show you what's still standing inside of you. He'll allow the pressure to reveal the power. He'll let the people leave to reveal His presence, because when everything else fades, what's left is Him, and you'll realize He's been enough all along. There's a moment in every believer's journey where the comfort of who you were collides with the call of who you're becoming. And that space in between, that's where faith is forged. That's where you cry and trust at the same time. That's where you question and believe at the same time. That's where you learn that following God doesn't always mean feeling good. It means staying faithful. Growth will make you uncomfortable because it exposes everything in you that's still attached to where you used to be. It'll make you confront old habits, old mindsets, old wounds. You'll have to unlearn some things. You'll have to forgive some people who never said sorry. You'll have to let go of the version of you that was only built to survive, because the version of you God is creating is built to thrive. Don't rush this process. I know you want to get to the promise, but if you skip the process, you won't have the strength to sustain what's coming. You can't carry new oil in an old vessel. That's why God is stretching you. He's making room. You prayed for more, and this is what more feels like before it arrives. Pressure always precedes promise. Sometimes you'll look around and think, God, I don't even recognize my life anymore. And he'll whisper, that's because I'm not building the life you expected. I'm building the one I designed. The pain you feel isn't punishment, it's preparation. You can't become who you're called to be while clinging to who you used to be. The transition hurts because the old you is dying and the new you is being born. Growth will require isolation. You'll find yourself in seasons where people don't understand you anymore, where conversations don't hit the same, where invitations stop coming. And you'll think something's wrong with you, but nothing's wrong. You're just being set apart. God isolates before he elevates. He pulls you away from the noise so you can hear his voice more clearly. You might cry in this season. You might feel lost, you might want to quit, but don't confuse discomfort with disqualification. Just because it hurts doesn't mean you're off track. Sometimes the pain is the proof that you're right where you need to be. If it's stretching you, it's shaping you. If it's humbling you, it's healing you. If it's uncomfortable, it's uncovering something deeper inside of you that God is trying to grow. Let God do his work in you. Stop fighting the stretch. Stop trying to go back to what was. You can't fit into places God has already called you out of. You can't shrink back into comfort and expect to carry calling. There's too much purpose in you to settle for small places. That's why he won't let you rest where you used to find peace, because you've outgrown that version of peace. He's pushing you toward purpose, and yes, it's going to require you to forgive, to release, to trust again. Growth always costs something, but what you gain on the other side of it, peace, clarity, strength, wisdom, is worth every tear. Don't curse the process that's growing you. Don't resent the pain that's refining you. One day, you'll look back and realize that everything that broke you was actually building you. You might not see it right now, but there's purpose in your pain. There's divine order in your discomfort. There's grace in your growing, and one day you'll thank God for not letting you stay comfortable, because comfort never creates change. He loves you too much to leave you the same, so let him lead, let him stretch you, let him strip away what's not serving your soul anymore. Trust that every tear is watering your next season, because the pain that's pressing you right now is producing something eternal. And even though it hurts, even though it's hard, even though you can't always see the reason why, remember this. Growth may break you for a moment, but it's only because God is building you for a lifetime.